Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. We're keeping it real goes right. Welcome back to Real Take Sports Talk. Gonna be a little different this week. I'm gonna be doing it solo this week. Johnny's busy with law school, our other guys are busy with doing their stuff, but it's okay. We're still gonna be putting out content. We're still gonna be talking about sports today, and we're gonna start off talking about one Russell Wilson. Now, there's a lot of news coming out of what is supposedly, sorry about that, the Russell Wilson and his camp possibly demanding a trade. Now, there's been talk across the NFL circles and across the media and everywhere that Russell Wilson might want out because of him being discontent with what's going on with Pete Carroll and his son. There was talk that possibly it has something to do with the fact that, they haven't been back to the Super Bowl since 2014. They have been lackluster in the playoffs in recent memory. They have not been able to recapture essentially the magic that they had back in the day. And I can tell you honestly, from the outside looking in, this seems to me like something that seemed impossible almost just 5 years ago. Because look at where the Seahawks were in 2012, 2013, 2014. 2012, Russell Wilson's rookie year, he comes in as a third-round pick. He comes in, wins like 12 or 11 games, takes them to the playoffs, has them within an inch of winning a playoff game in his rookie year as a third-round pick, as a quarterback who everyone said was undersized. And he comes in and wins. Next year, what does that team do along with that stout defense? They go and win a Super Bowl. The next year, in 2013, they dominate the league. They absolutely dominate the NFL. And they end up losing on a very controversial call in the Super Bowl on the last play of the game. We all remember it. Wilson at the 1-yard line doesn't hand it off to Marshawn Lynch. Instead, he throws it. It's intercepted by Malcolm Butler, and the Seahawks lose. Patriots win that Super Bowl. Ever since then, we've seen the dynasty that many were talking about, including myself. We all thought it was going to be a dynasty. They had players locked up under very good contracts. They had young players like Russell Wilson, a very cheap quarterback for the first 5 years of his career, as a third-round pick especially. They had him locked up. And out of that, they got 2 Super Bowl appearances and 1 Super Bowl win. Now, granted, no team's going to win the Super Bowl every year. I get that. But at the same time, you're supposed to be putting yourself in the position to do that, especially when you have the roster they had. They had the most dominant defense of the 2010s, the most dominant defense of the entire decade. And slowly, year after year, it got ripped away. Brandon Browner left. They had Cam Chancellor, unfortunately, have to retire. They had problems with Earl Thomas, obviously, and he had problems with Pete Carroll as well. And Pete Carroll seems to be at the center of this because, like I said earlier, a lot of this reportedly is stemming from Russell Wilson being unhappy with the way that Pete Carroll and his son, who's on the coaching staff, are managing the team. And he's essentially saying that they are accountable to nobody. But the rest of the players, the rest of the athletes, the rest of the team has to be held to account. So it's an unfair kind of thing. The blame is being shifted to the players, and maybe Pete Carroll from the front office is not getting the amount of blame he should get. Because let's be honest here. Pete Carroll did a great job with this team. He did a great job when he came in. He did a fantastic job in his first head coach. They went 7-9, but they won a playoff game. And they were in the hunt. But still, he underperformed. As a head coach, with the talent that he had, he wasn't able to keep it together. And why is that? Why is it that when Earl Thomas leaves to go to Baltimore and Earl Thomas gets carted off the field, he's flipping him off? Why is that? Why is it that when Earl Thomas goes to Baltimore, he's still talking mad crap about Pete Carroll? Why is it the former players like Richard Sherman felt like their time was up and they had to move on? Answer simple. Answer is very simple, and it's that Pete Carroll just couldn't keep the team together. And if they lose Russell Wilson, you might as well rebuild and start over with this team. This team, they have DK Metcalf, but outside of that, they don't have a running back. Their offensive line is garbage. That defense is not what it used to be. You lose Russell Wilson, you lose the franchise. You lose the fans. You're back to being the lime green joke of the league. Now, there have been some reports about Russell Wilson possibly leaving or possibly not. I'm going to read one report that says why he might not leave, but kind of highlights the tensions that are there in the organization currently. Quote, I can confidently tell you that no, he does not, he being Russell Wilson, he does not want out of Seattle. Now I can tell you that confidently here in 2021 that is the goal. Meaning now in 2021 the goal is to stay with the Seahawks. That means it doesn't necessarily spread across or past 2021. The goal is to be in Seattle, play in Seattle forever, retire as a Seahawk. But I think the days you see, and as you open up this conversation of Russell Wilson sitting back and being the poster child for your franchise quarterback and not saying anything, I think is done. I think Russell Wilson is tired of sitting back and hoping for change and is wanting to see change. So this is something that fans have been talking about for a while. The Seattle Seahawks seemingly have let a lot of their best players over the past decade just leave. And they've kind of relied or overly relied on Russell Wilson a little too much. They've relied on him being there. They've relied on him, carrying the franchise for everybody. But the thing is, you can't rely on one player. It's not sustainable. It's not how you should run a franchise. Look at the Colts. Before Ballard came in, look at the Colts. They relied on Peyton Manning entirely. Peyton Manning wasn't there for 1 year. They go 2-14 out of the playoffs, number 1 pick. Draft Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck comes in, and cycle starts again. They depend on him. They overly depend on him. He is the only thing holding the team together. He gets injured. Team falls apart. He gets injured again. Team falls apart. He gets injured again, comes back, and the team is actually put together well, but by that time, he's done with football. Russell Wilson is one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. I'm not saying that he's in the same position as Andrew Luck was. Russell Wilson has started every game since he came in the league. But it only takes a second for that injury bug to hit you. It only takes one play, one time, for that thought to be lingering in your head. Is this team setting me up for success? And the offensive line that Seattle's put together is not setting Russell Wilson up for success. The defense that they've trotted out there is not setting him up for success. And quite frankly, Pete Carroll himself didn't set up Russell Wilson for success, because if he was, and if he cared about the team, he wouldn't have put Russell Wilson in a position to throw the ball at the 1-yard line in that Super Bowl. That's just the facts. Keep it real on here. Now, the reports are that there are 4 teams interested in Russell Wilson, or 4 destinations that he would prefer. Those destinations are the Dallas Cowboys, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New Orleans Saints, and the Chicago Bears. Now, obviously, these are all plug-and-play options. If you're one of these teams, you are ecstatic at the prospect of possibly getting Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is still a top 3 quarterback in the league. Don't deny that. Don't deny that at all. Russell Wilson can still come in and win games. He's a leader. He is the epitome of what you want as a franchise quarterback in both talent and the way he carries himself. So, if I'm any of these teams, I'm willing to give up whatever it takes to get Russell Wilson. It's up to the Seahawks if they want to trade him. If I was the Seahawks, I wouldn't trade him. I would cut Pete Carroll before I cut Russell Wilson. No joke. No joke. Russell Wilson is worth 1,000 Pete Carrolls to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, coming from Dallas, you obviously have Dak there. He's injured. He was on the franchise tag last year. They have a big decision to make in the next few weeks. Do they franchise Dak Prescott? And the answer to that is not if you can get Russell Wilson. Not if you can get Deshaun Watson. Not if you can get one of these guys. Because Dak Prescott, yes, Dak Prescott is an elite talent, especially before the injury. He's an elite talent. But what Russell Wilson provides you and what Russell Wilson will give to you is more than Dak Prescott can at this current state in his career. And that we know of. Because, let's be honest, Dak Prescott, coming off an injury, Dak Prescott does not look like he's going to be, what he used to be. Especially given how grave his injury was. We saw Teddy Bridgewater get injured in a very bad way. And he came back and he's been better. Recently he's been better. But he's not the player he used to be. We saw similar things with people like Alex Smith. Alex Smith came back. He won Comeback Player of the Year. Alex Smith came back, won Comeback Player of the Year, and what happened? Did he play lights out? No. He was there to make the plays when he needed to. But you're going to need more than that. So Dallas, great landing spot. If they can get him, I'd get him. Dak can move on. Dak will find success somewhere else, I think. But if you have a chance to get Russell, you don't stop. Las Vegas, interesting scenario with both Marcus Mariota and Derek Carr there. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that if you're Seattle because, well, there's actually, here's the thing. Out of all of these teams, I'd be most apt to trade him to Dallas. Because if we're being honest, there's no team that's going to set him up for, failure better than Dallas. Because that's all that Dallas does. They set teams up for failure. They set players, rather, up for failure, and they don't win. The Dallas Cowboys just don't know how to win. The rest of these teams, whether it be Chicago, who has an elite defense that is a quarterback away from being contenders, whether it be New Orleans, who Drew Brees is gone, that's fine. Give me Russell Wilson. But if we're talking about who is the weak link amongst these teams, it's definitely Dallas, in my opinion. If you're talking about more bang for your buck as far as the NFL draft is considered, it's definitely Dallas. So that's where I could see Russell Wilson going. Chicago, again, he'd be plug and play, Super Bowl contender. New Orleans, same thing. Las Vegas, an interesting scenario. You would have to get rid of Derek Carr. I'm assuming Derek Carr would be part of the package sent to Seattle. But then if you're Seattle, are you committed to Derek Carr? Is that the guy you want under center? Is that who you want? Are you willing to give up those potential draft picks, those first-round draft picks, for Derek Carr? And I'm talking about give up like the Raiders would send first-round draft picks, but they obviously send less first-round draft picks if Derek Carr is part of the deal. But who knows? We'll see. We will see what happens with that. There's a lot to cover in the rest of the show. In the meantime, for those who are watching, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Another quarterback who is on the move and who has been on the move for a while now is one Deshaun Watson. Now, for those who don't know, let me recap just a little bit. Deshaun Watson obviously had a very bad year. Well, his team had a very bad year. Deshaun Watson himself had a bad year. But let's be honest, Deshaun Watson probably wasn't the happiest camper this year. And it has something to do with the fact that his team was set up for failure. The Houston Texans and Bill O'Brien set him up and his team up for failure. That's just the truth of it. Can't sugarcoat it. Can't say it any other way. Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans were not set up in a good situation. And that starts with Bill O'Brien, but it also starts with the owner, Bob McNair. McNair and Deshaun Watson have seemingly been at odds lately. And it's gotten to the point where Deshaun Watson was apparently told that he would have input in the going on of the team. He would have input in who gets hired potentially for GM, who gets hired for head coach. And then when the time came around, he was not involved in those discussions at all. When the time came around, the Texans just did what they did not consult their quarterback. And after a year where you set him up for failure, you trade away one of the best players in franchise history in DeAndre Hopkins. You trade away the best player on the team in DeAndre Hopkins, and who just happens to be Deshaun Watson's best friend. What did you think was going to happen? Deshaun Watson is sick of it. He wants out, rightfully so. And he has a few destinations in mind. But the most interesting one came out this week, and that was the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers and Deshaun Watson would be a very interesting scenario, because you have a team that last year in Carolina went out and got Teddy Bridgewater. I believe it was a 3-year, $60 million deal. And they seemed committed. But I feel like Teddy Bridgewater was always meant to be that bridge quarterback. Pun unintended. But he was always meant to be that bridge quarterback to kind of get you there until you find your franchise guy. And they also wanted to see what Teddy had. And, Teddy, for his benefit, for his sake, he had a pretty decent year, and it wasn't easy for the Panthers this year. Panthers were a competitive team that just didn't know how to finish. That's what they were. And they have some pieces, Robbie Anderson. They have some pieces on defense especially. And Matt Rule, I think he can coach. I think the dude can come in and coach. So that's not an issue. And I can see why Watson might want to go there. There's a few different reasons he might want to go there. Obviously, there's the Carolina ties from his time in Clemson. And there's also the fact that Watson would be taking over a new franchise that has a new owner that is, that is probably a better fit for him than the Houston Texans, and the owner who, called out players for kneeling, the owner who said that, supported the former president. So, excuse me. So I can see why this makes sense for him. Also, the team. The team is just there. That's a team that in a few years, and Deshaun Watson could immediately accelerate that process. Would be a playoff team. Potentially a contender if they keep building. So we'll see what happens there. But the whole Deshaun Watson thing has got me really thinking about, just what it takes in 2021 to keep your players. And, the answer is, it's easier said than done, but the answer is simple. Put together a good team. Don't let emotions get in the way. Don't let personal gripes get in the way like Bill O'Brien did with DeAndre Hopkins. Don't let any of that stuff get in the way. Because if you do, you're going to lose this guy. You're going to lose your franchise. We're seeing it happen with Russell Wilson potentially. We already are seeing it happen with Deshaun Watson. He met with the head coach. Deshaun Watson met with David Culley. He met with David Culley and the GM, and he explicitly said, does not matter. I'm not coming back. It has nothing to do with you guys personally. It has nothing to do with the fans. It has nothing to do with the other players. It has everything to do with how this organization is run, has been run since I've been here, and was run last year, and the owner. I need to go. I need to get out because it's killing my love of football. And he's willing to stay. He's willing to stay out of the field. He's willing to stay off the field, rather. He's willing to hold out. And I think he could last a long time. I think Deshaun Watson is committed to this. I literally don't think that he wants to play football in Houston anymore. And that's, if you're a Texans fan, that sucks. It's really bad. But the fact they didn't consult him, they lied to him, they traded away all their best players, they completely destroyed any chances they had of a rebuild by trading away all those first-round picks last year, and I mean Bill O'Brien. But still, Texans let it happen. They gave Bill O'Brien the power in the first place. And none of those moves that happened would have happened if the owners said, I don't want it to go. I don't want it to go through. That's just the facts. Just keeping it real. Moving on. There's been, I just talked about the Texans. It's funny, considering what we have slated next. So, J.J. Watt. Let's talk about J.J. Watt. In a very similar predicament as one Deshaun Watson. In a very, very similar predicament as Deshaun Watson. J.J. has been, released, he has been kind of on the free agent tour. It's been talked about that he potentially could be meeting with teams right as the new league year begins. There's a lot of talk about the potential salary he might be getting. And, I'll discuss that, but just to put a bow on the whole Texans thing. This is like another reason that the Houston Texans are a bad franchise. Because not only in the same year did they are they going to eventually let Deshaun Watson leave, their franchise quarterback, the best quarterback they've ever had in their franchise's history. But they also already let J.J. Watt leave. They released him earlier this year. So you're seeing essentially them just giving up and being forced into giving up. They went 4-12. The Houston Texans, great season before that, but last year they went 4-12. And, J.J. Watt was released after 10 seasons. Both parties agreed to part ways. And he's already starting to get interest from old teammate DeAndre Hopkins down in Arizona. He sent out a tweet and said he wanted him to come there. There's a few other teams that are involved, and then let's actually just talk about those for a second. So the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Tennessee Titans, and the Buffalo Bills are the teams that are interested in J.J. Watt potentially coming to them as a free agent. And there's even talk of J.J. getting a potential $16 million per year contract. Oof. J.J. Watt's one of the best defensive players of all time, by the way. This is not that oof was not meant to be disrespectful. J.J. Watt's one of the best defensive players of all time. Issue is, he's older, has an injury history. He's not as dominant as he was back in 2014 when he was up for an NFL MVP. So, you have that. You also have the fact that he just got released. You have the fact that, what team is going to be willing to give up all of that amount of cap room that's going to be a contender? Because JJ already said he wants to go to a contender. He doesn't want to go to a rebuilding situation, get money. No, it's about getting a ring. That's what it is for J.J. Watt at this point in his career. He wants to go get a ring. He wants to be able to say that I went to a Super Bowl and I won it. That's what everyone who cares about football wants to do by the end of their career, no matter what. Now, of the teams that are interested, obviously, I think the most obvious fit would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. His brother TJ is already there. Dominant defense already. They've been known to put that focus and that emphasis on defense. Mike Tomlin's an amazing coach. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers make sense. And I think TJ Watt being there might actually help recruit him for even less money. Cleveland, another interesting spot. That seems to be one that many are talking about, including J.J. Watt's camp. The idea that Watt would go to Cleveland, just 3 years ago would be outrageous because look at where they were. Coming off an 0-16 season, just a laughing stock of a franchise. And now Cleveland has turned it around a bit. They won a playoff game this year. Almost won 2. Big congrats to Baker Mayfield. Big congrats to their head coach. And, I think Baker Mayfield and the head coach being there kind of changed the culture in Cleveland. So Watt in Cleveland to me just seems like, if as much as people are talking about it, it seems like something that could happen. But I think that the more likely scenario is that he goes to a team like Pittsburgh or Buffalo. Tennessee, I'm not sure. I'm assuming they wanted to take Jadeveon Clowney's spot. But if you're Tennessee, you've also been burned by one former Texan with an injury history. Do you want to actually be burned by another one? Question mark. No, but there's another team out there. The other team out there would be the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are probably going to lose Yannick Ngakoue and Matthew Judon this offseason. Two very big cornerstones of their pass rush this past year. Matthew Judon has been a cornerstone of their pass rush the past few years. But if Watt wants to go to a team that is a contender, that is a dynamic offense, one of the best offenses in the league when it's clicking. I know we're going to talk about the fact that it wasn't clicking in some games later on in the show, but The Ravens are a good fit for Watt because they need a pass rusher. They have some cap room they're willing to spend on it. They obviously put emphasis on defense. And the way that offense plays, it limits the amount of time the defense is on the field. And that's one of the good things you have in Baltimore. And one of the good things for J.J. Watt, he doesn't have to be on the field, for over half the game. He doesn't need to be as disruptive as consistently. And he has the opportunity to be more disruptive. But Ravens hold the time of possession longer than any other team in the NFL. They are a running team. They burn clock. They burn all of it. J.J. Watt would flourish on that Baltimore Ravens defense, especially with those exotic blitzes they do. The only question is, would he be willing to take a pay cut to go there? Because he's not going to get paid $16 million, I can tell you right now. The only team that might give up $60 million would be potentially Tennessee or Cleveland. But $16 million is a lot for J.J. Watt. I don't know. Y'all tell me. We'll see what happens with J.J. But one thing, and I think we have two more, but we have two more things to talk about today. But the next thing I want to talk about kind of hits close to home. I'm not going to lie. It hits close to home as a Ravens fan. I know I just went on a little rant about J.J. Watt, but Ravens wide receivers have been in the news lately. The Ravens wide receivers, most notably, Marquise Hollywood-Brown, Willie Snead, and Dez Bryant went off on Twitter. And they were speaking out on their displeasure of the Ravens' passing offense. And rightfully so. Because, for those who don't know, the Ravens are one of the worst passing offense in the entire league. They had less than 3,000 yards passing last year as a team. Not just Lamar Jackson, but them as a team at less than 3,000 yards passing. Worst in the NFL. They're last in the NFL in getting receivers receptions, last in the NFL in getting receivers receiving yardage for receivers. A lot of their catches go to the tight ends like Andrews, Boyle, or whoever's out there, or running backs like Ingram, well, less so Ingram, but Dobbins and Gus Edwards. So you didn't really see them. You didn't really see the Ravens defense or the Ravens wide receivers getting in on the action a lot. And that has to do with the fact that they are essentially a read option offense first. They run the ball first. Lamar Jackson's more dynamic with the run. That's just true. And I think it doesn't help that the receivers when they are given the time or they are given the opportunities, their opportunities are like slant routes. Like 5-yard slant routes. Marquise Hollywood-Brown is a speedster. He should not be running 5-yard slant routes. But anyway, Ravens wide receivers went off on Twitter. Let's start with Dez Bryant. Now, Dez was talking about his experience in Baltimore, responding to a fan, and he said, I speak on my own personal experience. I was in a position where everything was already established. I took advantage of getting myself right. I realized quick that Baltimore wasn't a place for me. No bad blood. That's their way of doing things, so you got to respect it. And, he's right. And then that's not Dez Bryant, calling out the Baltimore Ravens organization. That's not him doing that. That's him saying that I had an opportunity to play football. The Ravens wanted me to come in and play. I came in. I played. And Dez Bryant, who's someone who said that he enjoyed playing. He enjoyed being a part of the Ravens organization when he was there. He enjoyed being a part of the team, but that has nothing to do with the fact that he's displeased, and rightfully so, with the way the offense is run because it doesn't cater to a wide receiver. And this kind of speaks to the reason why I don't think the Ravens specifically can get a number one wide receiver. And if they do get one, they're not going to keep them for long because unless they're a rookie, it's nearly impossible for us to go out and trade for someone like AJ Green or Julio Jones or another number one wide receiver, because once you do that, you got to be able to keep them. You got to be able to keep them happy. You got to be able to keep them involved in the offense. And we know the Ravens don't do that. And that's not a knock on Baltimore. That's not a knock on my team. It's just the truth. It's the truth. The Ravens just don't pass the ball as consistently as other teams because they don't need to. So this idea that they need a number one wide receiver, this idea that they need somebody to come in and be an every down wide receiver, to be Julio Jones. Julio Jones has never had less than 1,000 yards in his career, in a season. The last time a Ravens wide receiver had 1,000 yards in one season, I believe, was Torrey Smith back in 2014. It's just not the way the Ravens do it. And let's take a look at someone like Willie Snead. Willie Snead is a leader on the Ravens team, He's a leader on that wide receiving core. And he laid it out, just like I said. Any receiver can be a true number one if they're in a system that allows them to be. What they do after that is on him. And that's true. That's the truth. He went on to say in another tweet, you give any receiver 100 plus targets, if they're worth a damn, they'll be considered a number one receiver because they have plenty of opportunities to show it. If you gonna talk, speak facts, not name drop. Huge facts. True. Ravens were last in the NFL in passing, last in attempts. They're not a passing team. So to criticize the receivers as not number one receivers and to say that, oh my God, the Ravens receivers suck. Hollywood Brown, cut him. Oh, Dez Bryant isn't as progressing as well. Dez Bryant joined the team in like week 8. You all expect him to be Dez from 2014 when he came in halfway through the season? Marquise Hollywood Brown keeps dropping the ball. Well, maybe if Lamar Jackson actually threw some tight spirals, he'd be able to catch him. Maybe if Lamar Jackson didn't miss him on when he was streaking every at least twice a game last year, he would have the confidence to go up and get the ball. Maybe if Lamar Jackson targeted him more. But I digress. Hollywood Brown also got in on the action, and his was simple. Hollywood kept it simple. It was just retweeting what Willie Snead said with the 100 emoji. And I retweet that with a 100 emoji. Just true. Like, the Ravens aren't a bad team. They're just a running football team. And I think fans, analysts need to come to terms with that. They're not going to be the team that, goes out there and throws for 300 yards a game. They're never going to be the Chiefs. That offense will never be the Chiefs' offense. The best that the Ravens will be, and the best they can be, is what you saw out of Lamar Jackson in the Monday Night Football game against the Cleveland Browns. That's what the Ravens are. They set up the run so well that they're able to take advantage of play-action passing games like no other team in history because of the athletic skills of Lamar Jackson. And that's the thing that people forget. Lamar Jackson is a different type of player than Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, even Mike Vick. But the thing is, the way the Ravens use him is they rely on his legs. And say what you want about the receivers, if they're not getting the opportunities to catch the ball, if they're not getting as many opportunities to catch the ball as all those number one receivers they have down in Kansas City. Oh my God, everyone there is a number one receiver. If they're not getting those opportunities, there's no way anyone can count them as number one receiver. That's just the truth. Straight facts. Be mad if you want. It is what it is, right? All right, last topic of the day. Let's go to our final takes. So Zlatan Ibrahimovic was in the news recently, and he was criticizing one LeBron James. Now, LeBron is someone who's been very outspoken about his views on politics and race, and rightfully so. But there is a growing number of, apparently, people. I don't know where Zlatan is on the political spectrum. I'm not going to speculate on that, but there's a growing number of people who've kind of said the whole shut up and dribble analogy to LeBron James. The whole telling him to stop talking about politics. And Zlatan was one of those people. And excuse me while I'm pulling up exactly what he said. Because it's very important to understand, exactly like where this stemmed from. So Pulling it up. Okay, here we go. So, here we go. At the end of the day, I would never shut up about... Oh, sorry. That was LeBron James, and I'll play his clip in a second. My bad, guys. So basically what Zlatan said to LeBron was, LeBron is phenomenal at what he's doing, but I don't like it when people have some kind of status. They go and do politics at the same time. Do what you're good at. Do the category you do. I play football because I'm the best at playing football. I don't do politics. If I would be a political politician, I would do politics. That is the first mistake people do when they become famous and they become in a certain status. Stay out of it. Just do what you're best at because it doesn't look good. Now, obviously, that statement has "shut up and dribble" written all over it. To quote, Laura Ingraham from Fox News, basically telling him to stick what he's good at, to stick to what he does, and not speak out on political issues. The issue with that is, though, that politics is something that affects everyone in society. And the reason that we have a political system and a free political system is so everyone can speak out against intolerance and people can speak out against what's wrong. Now, LeBron actually responded to Zlatan's claims, and Zlatan's basically telling him to shut up and dribble. So let's take a listen to what he says, because it's quite important to understand the entire basis of where LeBron's coming from. So let's take a listen to what he has to say.
Such as yourself shouldn't use their platform to do anything other than what they're good at in their athletic endeavor. As someone who has promoted the idea of more than an athlete and trying to empower players to use their voice to speak on their communities, do you have any response to what he said?
Nah, absolutely not. I mean, because at the end of the day, I would never shut up about things that's wrong. I preach about my people, and I preach about equality, social injustice, racism, systematic voting, voter suppression, things that go on in our community. Because I was a part of my community at one point and seeing the things that was going on, and I know what's going on still, because I have a group of 300 plus kids at my school that's going through the same thing, and they need a voice. And I'm their voice. And I use my platform to continue to shed light on everything that may be going on, not only in my community, but around this country and around the world. So, if there's no reason, I won't say no reason, but there's no way I will ever just stick to sports, because I understand how this platform and how powerful my voice is. And he can just ask Renee Montgomery, if I would have shut up and just dribbled. Seeing that beautiful black woman today, be a part of a group where she's part of an ownership group now with the Atlanta Dream down in Atlanta. And it's funny he say that, because I believe in 2018, he was the same guy who said when he was back in Sweden talking about the same things, because his last name wasn't a certain last name, that he felt like it was some racism going on when he was out on the pitch. Right? He did say that, right? Yeah, I thought he said that. So I speak from a very educated mind. I'm kind of the wrong guy to actually go at, because I do my homework.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is definitely in the wrong, because at the end of the day, we can say what we want about being involved in politics and what politics you're part of. We can disagree on that, right? You can't disagree with is people speaking out. And when people speak out and they use facts and they use logic, basic logic, to speak their mind and tell their story about what's going on, not just their community, but, in their society, then there's nothing wrong with that. What Zlatan's doing is he's also setting a double standard because obviously, as you heard, Zlatan is someone who was born in a Muslim family, and where he came from, there was a lot of persecution of Muslims. There's a lot of racism in Sweden, especially recently, against Muslims and people with Islamic heritage. So for Zlatan to come out knowing that and basically telling LeBron to stick to what he does, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a lack of understanding of the American society and where black people stand in it currently. Maybe it could be a bunch of things, but athletes have always spoken out. That's the one thing. Athletes have always spoken out on what they believe, and in politics especially. It's happened all throughout time. Jackie Robinson was one of the greatest baseball players in history, but also part of him going to to the major leagues was political. It was to set a standard that black people could play in the major leagues. And you can go to examples like Muhammad Ali, not going to Vietnam and then being banned from boxing, having his world championship stripped. So it's not the first time, it won't be the last time that athletes take a stand against injustice. I believe the South Korean team had a similar showing a few years ago. So this happens. This is something that happens. This is not a oh my god, LeBron James always speaking out and butting his nose in. No, he's speaking out to what affects his community. You can disagree with what he's saying, right? But you have that freedom. But you can't say that he shouldn't say it, because there's always a double standard there. Because the second you start saying something that might disagree with what he's saying, and he says, well, that's wrong, you're going to say he's trying to hinder your speech. So don't be a dick. Moral of the story. I think I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover. No final thoughts today. Hopefully everyone has a good weekend. I'll cut this up. Some more videos are coming up to the channel pretty soon, but hope you like this. Hopefully gonna have Johnny or somebody back with me next week to cover sports, everything going on. Be sure to follow at Real Take Sports on Twitter. And yeah, keep it real, guys.